Hi, welcome to EPK Capital's YouTube channel. In this series, we are covering all the important news from the world of finance to come out in last 24 hours. Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome everyone. We're doing a deep dive today into EO8 14 2025, a really fascinating day. Our mission is to cut through some of the noise, understand how these record markets, the surge in digital assets, inflation data, and, well, some pretty interesting geopolitical shifts all kind of wove together. We've gone through a whole lot of material for you, market recaps, economic reports, political analysis, the works, really trying to get you the key takeaways fast. And it's striking, isn't it? There's this really strong sense of optimism you see, especially in US stocks and crypto, mostly tied to what people think central banks will do. Yeah, but when you connect that to the, let's say, the bigger picture, it was definitely a day of compelling contrast. Lots going on beneath the surface. Absolutely. So let's start right there with the US markets. The Dow, S&P 500, Nasdaq, all hitting new record highs, just continuing this climb. Yeah, quite a run. How much of that do you think is, well, sustainable versus just being fueled by those rate cut hopes you mentioned? That really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, this huge optimism, it seems to stem almost directly from expecting lower borrowing costs. Yet that softer July CPI data, remember, came out the day before August 13th. 2.7% year over year. Right, I remember that. That plus some pretty dovish comments from Treasury Secretary Besant, it just pushed the odds of a September Fed rate cut to, well, nearly 100% according to market pricing. So very much an expectation-driven rally. Exactly. And it wasn't just tech leading the charge, was it? I saw healthcare, biotech, even airlines and home builders doing well. That's right. Does that suggest maybe a healthier advance, more diverse, or just money sloshing around? Well, it's definitely a positive signal, seeing that broader participation. Yeah. It suggests investors are, rotating into sectors that really benefit if rates do come down those cyclical areas. So, yeah, it hints at a more diversified move, not just the handful of big tech names we've seen dominate. Sometimes could be healthier. Okay, shifting gears a bit. Crypto. Bitcoin didn't just rise. It smashed through a 124,000 new all-time high. Incredible numbers. And it actually passed Alphabet, Google's parent, becoming the 5th largest global asset. What's driving that? Yeah, that was quite the milestone. And look, it's not just retail speculation this time around, or at least not only that. We're seeing really strong inflows into crypto funds, the institutional money. Plus, you've got some legislative wins providing clarity, like the SEC closing its case against Ripple Labs' big fine, a $125,000. But it settles things for XRP. That kind of regulatory clarity helps. Okay. So clearer rules of the road, more institutional money. Exactly. And new financial products coming online too. It's maturing in a way. And it wasn't just Bitcoin either. Ethereum was up past 4,700, lots of altcoins moving. Anything specific worth highlighting there, like layer 2s or token burns? Oh, definitely broad momentum. Layer 2 projects, which help blockchain scale, they saw strong interest. And yeah, token burns made headlines like OKB jumping, what was it? 132%. Wow, yeah. Huge jump. That's directly linked to them burning tokens, taking them out of circulation permanently. Increases scarcity, pushes up value. Simple economics really applied to crypto. So we have all this market optimism, US stocks, crypto. But how does this square with the bigger global economic picture? The IMF, for instance, they upped growth forecasts slightly, but talked about tenuous resilience. That's the crucial tension, isn't it? Yeah. The IMF basically said yes. Things look okay for 2025-2026, but they also flagged persistent uncertainty in their 5-year forecast. Yeah, lowest in decades. So there's this short-term optimism bumping up against, well, some longer-term fragility. And we saw differences region by region too, right? Like India's inflation falling. Yes, exactly. India's consumer inflation dropped to an 8-year low. That's interesting because it gives their central bank, the RBI, room to potentially cut rates again, which is quite different from what we're seeing elsewhere. Very different. It just highlights how uneven the global recovery is, a multi-speed world. Okay, let's pivot some of the political currents. Back in the US, President Trump's deployment of the National Guard in DC, that was on August 11th. He cited crime rates, but it drew a lot of criticism. It did. Groups like Human Rights Watch pushed back, pointing out that crime rates, according to available data, were actually falling in DC at the time. It really underscored the ongoing tension between executive actions, how things are perceived publicly, and the underlying data, a significant domestic event. And then in complete contrast on the world stage, a really historic diplomatic move today. Azerbaijan and Armenia reached a peace agreement in Washington. Yes, a major breakthrough, including something called the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity, or TPP project. What exactly is that? What does this deal mean? Well, beyond the immediate relief of ending conflict, this agreement, especially that Tribe P component, aims to open up new economic corridors in the region. Right? We're talking trade routes, potentially energy flows. It could genuinely reshape regional dynamics, maybe even global trade patterns to some extent. It challenges old power structures. Definitely one to watch for geopolitical impact. Fascinating. And one last data point that caught my eye from Canada. Approval of US leadership there apparently fell to just 15%. Yes. Statistically tied with approval for Russia, which is striking. Right, but at the same time, approval for their own Prime Minister Carney rebounded. Yet, paradoxically, Canadian economic optimism hit a record low. What does that disconnect tell you? Why should you, the listener, care? That Canadian example is really telling, I think. It shows how political sentiment, maybe tribalism or identity, can become detached from people's feelings about their own economic situation. You have political approval rising, while economic hope falls. It raises big questions for leaders everywhere. How do you govern effectively when people's political views and their economic reality seem disconnected? It impacts policy, social cohesion, everything. So, wrapping this up for you, August 14 was clearly a day marked by significant market optimism. You saw it in US stocks. You saw it massively in crypto. And a lot of that seems fueled by what people expect central banks, particularly the Fed, to do next. But, and this is the crucial but, those underlying nuances we talked about, the IMF's caution about tenuous resilience, the very different economic stories playing out globally, the political tensions versus diplomatic wins, they all remind us there's always more going on beneath the headline. It's never simple. So for you, the learner, here's something to chew on. Given how much today's optimism rests on central bank expectations and knowing how uncertain the global picture still is, what happens if future inflation data doesn't cooperate? What if it doesn't support that dovish outlook everyone's banking on? How do you think markets would react? What could be the biggest surprise, good or bad, if those expectations suddenly get challenged? Something to think about. We hope this video gave you some valuable knowledge. If you think this was useful, then do like and share this video. Also, do subscribe to our channel. And for any query,